My brother ruined my life, then begged for my help after our parents cut him off, and I inherited everything. I never thought I'd be posting here, but honestly I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective from you all on Reddit. I'm Keith, 32 male, and for context, this is about my family. My parents and my older brother Howard, who is 35. Growing up, it was pretty clear who the favorite was, and spoiler alert, it wasn't me. Howard was the golden boy. Handsome, charming, supposedly brilliant, at least according to my parents. Me, I was just Keith, the quiet one, the responsible one. The one who always got compared to Howard and always came up short in their eyes. From the time we were kids, it was like we were living in two different families. Howard got everything he wanted. Expensive toys, the latest gadgets, no chores, no rules, or at least no rules that were ever enforced. If Howard wanted something, he got it. If I asked for something, it was always, "We'll see," or "maybe for your birthday," or some other excuse that basically meant no. I remember one Christmas when I was maybe 10, Howard got a brand new video game console, the super expensive one everyone wanted. I asked for a new set of art supplies, just some decent colored pencils and paper. I loved to draw back then. My parents told me art was a frivolous hobby and that I should focus on more practical things. Howard, meanwhile, spent hours playing video games, and my parents would just smile and say he was relaxing after a hard day of being a kid. A hard day of being a kid. I had chores, homework, and was expected to get good grades, all while Howard coasted through life with barely any effort and was praised for just existing. It wasn't just material things, either. It was the constant praise, the constant validation Howard got for everything he did, even when he messed up. If Howard got a bad grade, it was the teacher's fault or he was having an off day. If I got a bad grade, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough, or I was lazy, or I just wasn't as smart as Howard. Seriously, it was like they had completely different standards for us. And the emotional stuff. Don't even get me started. Howard could throw tantrums, yell, scream, and he was just being passionate or expressing himself. If I ever dared to show any negative emotion, I was being disrespectful, dramatic, or attention-seeking. I learned pretty quickly to just keep my feelings to myself. It was easier that way. Less drama, less criticism. Financially, it was even more blatant. My parents paid for Howard's expensive private school, his fancy sports equipment, his trips abroad. When I wanted to go on a school trip, I had to get a part-time job to pay for it myself. When I needed a new laptop for college, I had to take out student loans, while Howard got a brand new top-of-the-line computer, no questions asked. They even paid for his first car, a brand new sports car, while I was stuck driving a beat-up old clunker that barely ran. And the thing is, Howard wasn't even grateful. He acted like he was entitled to all of it, like it was his birthright. He was spoiled rotten, and my parents just kept enabling him. After high school, Howard decided he wanted to be an entrepreneur. Of course he did. He had all these grand ideas, none of which ever seemed to pan out. My parents, bless their hearts, funded every single one of them. Restaurant, tech startup, clothing line, you name it, Howard tried it and my parents bankrolled it. And guess what? They all failed, miserably. Each time, Howard would just shrug it off, blame the market, blame his business partners, blame anything and everything but himself. And my parents would just pat him on the back, tell him he was learning valuable lessons, and give him even more money for his next brilliant venture. Meanwhile, I was working my butt off in college, studying business administration, ironically enough, and trying to build a solid foundation for my future. I graduated with honors, got a good job at a reputable company, and started working my way up the ladder. No handouts, no bailouts, just hard work and determination. Imagine that. For years, this dynamic continued. Howard would bounce from one failed project to another, living off my parents' generosity, while I was actually building a career, buying my own house, being a responsible adult. My parents would still constantly compare me to Howard, always in his favor, of course. Even though he was a complete mess and I was actually doing well in their eyes, Howard was still the shining star. It was infuriating, to say the least. I tried to talk to them about it once, about how unfair it was, how much it hurt to always be second best, to always be overlooked. My mother just sighed and said, "Howard just needs more support, Keith. You're so strong and independent, you don't need our help. Strong and independent, or just neglected and overlooked." I didn't say it out loud, but that's what I was thinking. It felt like they were punishing me for being responsible and rewarding Howard for being a failure. It made absolutely no sense. Things finally started to shift a few years ago. I had been working at my company for about 5 years and had climbed up to a management position. I had saved up some money, invested wisely, and was feeling pretty good about my financial situation. Then, I got an opportunity. A small tech company, a startup, was looking for a COO. They were impressed with my resume, my experience, and my ideas. They offered me the job, with a significant pay raise and stock options. It was a risk, leaving a stable job for a startup, but something inside me told me this was the right move. I took the leap, and it was the best decision I ever made. The startup took off. Turns out my skills and experience were exactly what they needed. We worked hard, we innovated, we grew, and within a couple of years, the company was booming. We went public last year, and the stock price went through the roof. Suddenly, I was not just doing well, I was wealthy, like seriously wealthy. It was surreal. I went from being the overlooked, underappreciated son to a successful, financially independent man. And how did my family react to all of this? Well, that's where things get really interesting. At first, they didn't really notice. Or maybe they didn't want to notice. They were still so focused on Howard and his latest disaster. He had started some kind of online coaching business, promising to teach people how to get rich quick. Surprise, surprise, it was a scam, and it crashed and burned spectacularly. My parents, of course, were there to pick up the pieces, bailing him out once again. They were so consumed with Howard's drama that they barely even registered my success. I tried to tell them about the company going public, about how well I was doing, but they just nodded vaguely and changed the subject back to Howard's latest problems. It was like they were incapable of seeing anything good happening to me. Then the news started to spread. My company was getting media attention, I was being interviewed on business shows, my name was popping up in financial articles. Suddenly, my parents and Howard couldn't ignore it anymore. The shift was gradual at first, subtle changes in their tone, in their questions. They started asking more about my work, about my company, about my life. It was almost comical to watch them try to adjust to this new reality. The son they had always dismissed was now someone they needed to impress. Howard was the first one to really make a move. He called me up out of the blue after months of barely any contact. "Hey Keith, long time no talk," he said, all buddy-buddy like we were best friends. "How's it going?" I played it cool. "Yeah, things are good, Howard," I replied. "Busy with work, you know." "Oh yeah, work," he said, chuckling nervously. "I heard you're doing pretty well with that tech company of yours." "Pretty well." Understatement of the century. "Yeah, it's going okay," I said, trying not to sound smug, even though I kind of wanted to be. "So, he continued, getting to the point, "I was wondering if maybe we could get together sometime, grab lunch or something." Catch up, catch up. This was the brother who had barely acknowledged my existence for years, who had always treated me like I was invisible. Now he wanted to catch up. "Sure, Howard," I said, "why not? Lunch sounds good." But in my head I was thinking, "Oh, I know exactly what you want, Howard, and you're not going to get it." We met for lunch a few days later. Howard was all smiles and fake enthusiasm. He kept complimenting me on my success, telling me how proud he was of me, how he always knew I had it in me. It was so transparent, it was almost painful to watch. I just nodded and smiled, letting him dig himself deeper. Finally, after about 20 minutes of small talk and forced compliments, he got to the real reason for the lunch. "So, Keith," he said, leaning in conspiratorially, "I have this amazing new business idea. It's going to be huge, even bigger than your tech company, I guarantee it." "Oh, really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Tell me more." And he launched into his pitch. It was some convoluted scheme involving cryptocurrency and NFTs, something completely nonsensical and clearly unsustainable. I listened patiently, nodding occasionally, pretending to be interested. After about 10 minutes of this, he finally paused, out of breath and clearly expecting me to be blown away by his genius. "So, what do you think?" he asked, beaming. "Pretty amazing, right?" I took a sip of my water, considering my response. "Howard," I said finally, "to be honest, it sounds like a disaster waiting to happen." His smile faltered. "What? No, you don't understand," he protested. "This is cutting edge, this is the future, this is going to make us both rich. Us both. Ah, there it is, the real reason for the lunch. You want me to invest, don't you?" I said, cutting to the chase. "Well, yeah," he admitted a little sheepishly. "I mean, you've got all this money now, and I've got the ideas. It's a perfect partnership, don't you think? A perfect partnership." With the brother who had always looked down on me, who had never taken me seriously, who had always been handed everything on a silver platter while I had to struggle for every single thing I achieved. A partnership with the guy who had failed at every single business venture he had ever attempted, all while being funded by our parents. A perfect partnership. Hardly. Howard, I said, leaning back in my chair, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm not going to invest in your business. His face fell. What? Why not? Because, Howard, I said, because your ideas are terrible, your business acumen is non-existent, and frankly, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. Ouch. I know it was harsh, but it was the truth. He deserved to hear it. He had lived in a bubble of delusion for so long, someone needed to burst it. He sputtered, he stammered, he tried to argue, but I stood my ground. I reminded him of all his past failures, of all the money he had wasted, of all the opportunities he had squandered. I reminded him of how he had always treated me, how he had always looked down on me. And then I dropped the bomb. And besides, Howard, I said, you know what? I don't owe you anything. In fact, you owe me. Remember all those times I had to cover for you when you screwed up. Remember all the times I had to lend you money that you never paid back. Remember all the times you made fun of me, belittled me, treated me like I was less than you. Yeah, I remember all of that, Howard, and I haven't forgotten. He was speechless. He just sat there staring at me, his mouth hanging open. I stood up to leave. Look, Howard, I said, I'm not going to pretend like we're suddenly best buddies now that I'm successful. You had your chance to be a good brother and you blew it. Now you're going to have to figure things out on your own. Good luck with your crypto NFTs or whatever it is. And I walked out of the restaurant, leaving him sitting there, stunned and defeated. It felt good, I'm not going to lie, really good. It wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about finally standing up for myself, about finally saying no to the entitled golden child who had always taken everything for granted. It was about reclaiming my own worth, my own value. And it was incredibly liberating. My parents' reaction was even more predictable. They called me a few days later, furious. Keith, how could you be so cruel to your brother? My mother wailed. He's your family. Family is supposed to support each other. Support each other. Where was that support when I was growing up? Where was that support when I was struggling to pay for college? Where was that support when Howard was getting laid out for the 10th time? Mom, I said calmly, Howard is a grown man. He needs to take responsibility for his own life. I'm not his personal ATM. But he's your brother, she insisted. You should be helping him. Mom, I said, I have helped him. Indirectly for years by being the responsible son who didn't cause you any trouble. Now it's his turn to be responsible. And if that means he has to face the consequences of his own actions, then so be it. I'm not going to enable his bad habits anymore. They kept arguing, they kept guilt-tripping, they kept trying to manipulate me into changing my mind. But I stood firm. I had finally learned my lesson. I couldn't keep trying to please them, to earn their approval, to be the son they wanted me to be. I had to be true to myself, to prioritize my own well-being, to set boundaries. And that's exactly what I did. I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I had said my piece, I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to back down. Let Howard and my parents deal with it. I was done. I was finally free, and it felt amazing. I never thought I'd be in this position, the successful son turning down his family, but honestly, Reddit, it's the best thing I've ever done. Am I the asshole here? Maybe to them, but for myself, I finally feel like I'm doing the right thing. Help me out here, Reddit. Update 1. Wow, I am honestly blown away by the response to my post. I never expected so many people to relate to my story. Thank you all for the overwhelming support and validation. It means more than you know. Reading your comments, I realize I'm definitely not the asshole here. In fact, many of you are saying I'm a saint for not going off on my brother and parents sooner. Seriously, thank you. It's incredibly validating to hear that I'm not crazy, that my feelings are valid, and that I'm doing the right thing by setting boundaries. Since my original post, things have escalated a bit, as expected. Howard and my parents are not happy, to say the least. Howard has been blowing up my phone with angry texts and voicemails, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of being selfish, greedy, and heartless. He even showed up at my office, demanding to talk to me. I had security escort him out. It was embarrassing, but also kind of satisfying to see him finally facing some real consequences for his behavior. My parents have also doubled down on the guilt trips. They've been calling me constantly, sending me long, emotional emails, even showing up at my house unannounced. They're trying every tactic they can think of to get me to change my mind and bail out Howard. They've even started playing the health card, claiming that all this stress is making them sick. Seriously. I told them I wasn't going to discuss it anymore, that my decision was final, and that they needed to respect my boundaries. They did not take it well. The most surprising development, though, is that some of my extended family members have gotten involved. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people I haven't talked to in years are suddenly reaching out, siding with my parents and Howard and trying to pressure me to help them. Apparently, my parents have been spreading their version of the story, painting me as the villain who abandoned his poor, struggling brother. It's ridiculous, but also kind of hurtful to see how easily people are willing to believe their lies without even hearing my side of things. I've tried to explain my perspective to some of these relatives, but it's like talking to a brick wall. They're so convinced that family is everything, that you have to support your family no matter what, that they refuse to see the bigger picture. They don't understand the years of mistreatment, the constant favoritism, the emotional and financial neglect I endured. They just see a successful son who is refusing to help his brother, and in their eyes, that makes me the bad guy. It's frustrating and disheartening, but honestly, Reddit, your support is helping me stay strong. Knowing that so many of you understand and validate my feelings is making it easier to ignore the negativity and stick to my decision. Thank you again for everything. I'll keep you updated on any further developments if there are any. I'm bracing myself for more drama, but I'm also feeling more confident than ever that I'm doing the right thing. Update 2. Okay, Reddit, things have gotten even crazier. Thank you again for all the support on my last updates. It's been a wild ride and your comments have really kept me grounded. So, where to begin? Well, first off, Howard's business venture, the crypto NFT thing, has officially imploded. Turns out it was even shadier than I initially thought. Apparently, some investors are now threatening to sue him for fraud. Oops. My parents are in full damage control mode, trying to shield Howard from the fallout, but honestly, I think this one might be too big for them to handle. Serves him right, honestly. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, as they say. The financial situation with my parents and Howard is now even more dire. They've apparently maxed out their credit cards, drained their savings, and are facing serious debt. Howard, of course, is completely broke and has nowhere to go. And guess who they're turning to now? Yep, you guessed it, me. The pressure has intensified tenfold. My parents have escalated their tactics from guilt trips and emotional manipulation to outright desperation. They've started calling me multiple times a day, crying, begging, pleading for me to help them. They're saying they're going to lose their house, that they'll be out on the streets, that it's all my fault for not helping Howard. It's insane. They even showed up at my office again, this time with Howard in tow. They staged some kind of pathetic scene in the lobby, begging me to reconsider, crying and wailing about how I was destroying their family. It was mortifying. My colleagues were staring, security was called again, it was a complete circus. I had to literally walk past them and pretend I didn't see them to get to my office. Later that day, I got a call from HR, suggesting that maybe I should take some time off to deal with my family issues. Seriously. They're making my work life miserable now too. It's unbelievable. The extended family drama is also still ongoing. The flying monkeys, as some of you called them in the comments, are still coming out of the woodwork, sending me messages, leaving voicemails, trying to guilt trip me into helping my family. I've started just ignoring their calls and messages. I can't deal with it anymore. It's exhausting and pointless. They're not going to listen to reason, they're not going to understand my perspective, they just want me to give in and solve their problems. Well, it's not happening. I've reached my limit. On a slightly brighter note, my friends have been incredibly supportive through all of this. They've been checking in on me, offering to listen, giving me advice, and just generally being amazing. They've told me I'm doing the right thing, that I need to protect myself, and that my family is being completely unreasonable. Their support has been a lifeline, honestly. I don't know what I would do without them. Also, your comments on Reddit have been a huge source of strength and validation. Knowing that so many strangers online are in my corner is surprisingly comforting. Thank you all for being there. I'm still holding firm on my decision not to bail out Howard or my parents. It's not easy and the pressure is intense, but I know it's the right thing for me. I need to protect my own well-being and my own future. And honestly, after years of being the doormat, it feels good to finally put myself first. We'll keep you all updated if anything else happens. Hopefully this drama will die down eventually. One can only hope, right? Update 3. Okay, Reddit, this is the final update, at least for now. And it's actually a positive one. Believe it or not, things have finally started to calm down. The storm seems to have passed, or at least, it's subsided to a manageable drizzle. Thank you all again for your incredible support and advice throughout this whole ordeal. It truly made a difference. First off, Howard and my parents seem to have finally gotten the message. After weeks of relentless pressure, guilt trips, and emotional blackmail, they've finally stopped contacting me. I haven't heard from Howard in over a week, and my parents' calls and emails have dwindled to almost nothing. It's like they've finally realized that I'm not going to budge, that I'm not going to bail them out, and that their tactics are not working. It's a huge relief, honestly. The silence is deafening, but in a good way, a peaceful way. I think the turning point was probably when my parents realized the depth of Howard's financial mess. The lawsuit threats from his investors became very real, and they finally understood that they couldn't just sweep this under the rug. They're now facing serious legal and financial consequences, and I suspect they're too preoccupied with their own problems to bother me anymore. Good riddance, I say. Let them deal with the mess they created. As for the extended family drama, that's also died down considerably. The flying monkeys have retreated back to their trees, or wherever they came from. I think they've finally realized that I'm not going to be swayed by their opinions, and that my decision is firm. Some of them have even started to subtly change their tune, sending me polite messages, asking how I'm doing, and generally being less judgmental. It's almost comical to watch them backpedal. I haven't engaged with them much, though. I'm still keeping my distance. I need some space and time to heal from all of this. The best part of all of this is the peace and quiet I've finally found. Without the constant drama and negativity from my family, I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I can finally focus on my work, my friends, my own life, without being constantly bombarded by their demands and expectations. It's amazing how much energy they were draining from me, and how much better I feel now that they're out of the picture, at least for the time being. My friends have been incredible throughout this whole thing. They've continued to be supportive, understanding, and just generally awesome. We went out for dinner last weekend to celebrate my newfound freedom, and it was genuinely one of the most enjoyable evenings I've had in a long time. It's so nice to be surrounded by people who actually care about me, who support me, and who don't try to manipulate or guilt-trip me. So, yeah, Reddit, that's the update. The drama seems to be over for now at least. I'm sure there will be more bumps in the road in the future, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own life. I made a tough decision, I stood my ground, and it paid off. I'm finally free from the toxic dynamic with my family, and I'm looking forward to building a happier, healthier future for myself. Thank you all again for your support. It truly meant the world to me. And to anyone else out there dealing with toxic family members, know that you're not alone, and that setting boundaries is not only okay, it's essential for your own well-being. Take care, Reddit. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.